Welcome to Deep Dive Daily. Today, we're taking a close look at the second highest office in India, the Vice Presidency. Now, we all know it's a position with a lot of prestige, but what does the Vice President actually do? Is this a role with real, tangible power, or is it more of a ceremonial title? It's interesting. Some political scholars have even provocatively called the office superfluous, which is really just a fancy way of saying unnecessary. So is that fair? Is the office really just for show? Well, that's what we're here to investigate. What is the true purpose of India's vice president?
All right, so let's get the basics down first. Officially, in the government's order of precedence, the vice president is number 2. They're outranked only by the president. So, on paper at least, they are right at the very top of the hierarchy.
Now, when India's constitution was being drafted, the architects looked across the ocean to the American vice presidency for inspiration. It was a good model to start with. But, and this is a big but, they didn't just hit copy-paste. They introduced a fundamental twist, a key difference that completely redefines the whole purpose of the office. So, how do we start to unravel this? Well, our first major clue about the vice president's real function is hidden in plain sight. It's in how they're elected. You could call it a tale of two very different elections. So, check this out. The president is chosen by an electoral college that includes members of parliament and elected members from all the state legislative assemblies. But the vice president? They're elected only by members of parliament, both the elected and the nominated ones. The states have absolutely zero say in the matter. So why the huge difference? What's the logic here? Well, the logic comes straight from the man himself, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, one of the key architects of the Constitution. His argument was pretty straightforward. The president is the head of the entire Indian state, the center and the states, so it's only right that both should have a say in their election. But the vice president, their main day-to-day job, as Ambedkar said, is to preside over the Rajya Sabha, the Council of States. Since that's a federal parliamentary job, it made sense to keep the election entirely within parliament. And you can't just throw your hat in the ring. Getting on the ballot is a serious process. A candidate needs 20 MPs to propose their name, and then a different 20 MPs to second that nomination. On top of that, there's a security deposit. These hurdles are there for a reason, to make sure that only serious contenders with real political backing are even in the running. So you've got the support to get nominated. What else does it take to qualify for this job, and what are the official rules they have to follow? Let's break it down. The qualifications are very clear-cut. You have to be an Indian citizen, be at least 35 years old, and you can't hold another paying government job. But the really important one is that you must be qualified to be a member of the Rajya Sabha. And that just makes perfect sense, right? Because their main job is to be the chairperson of that very house. Once they're elected, the vice president serves for a term of 5 years. This lines up perfectly with the term of the president and the Lok Sabha, which helps create a nice, consistent rhythm in the country's political cycle. Now, how can the office become empty? Well, a few ways. The most obvious is the 5-year term simply runs out. But the VP could also resign, they could be removed from office, or they could pass away. And there's one more. It's also possible for the Supreme Court to declare their election void. Now, this removal process is really unique. It's not a full-blown impeachment like for the president. Instead, a resolution to remove the VP has to start in the Rajya Sabha, the house they chair. If it passes there with what's called an effective majority, that's a majority of the current members, not just those present in voting, it then goes to the Lok Sabha, where it just needs a simple majority to be approved. It's a high bar, for sure, but not quite as high as a formal impeachment. Okay, this is where we get to the absolute heart of the matter. The vice president essentially wears 2 very different hats, but, and this is key, they never wear them at the same time. So here they are, the 2 core jobs. The first hat is the primary day-to-day role, being the ex-officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. That's a legislative function. The second hat is the contingency plan, the emergency-only job, acting as president if that office suddenly becomes vacant. That's a temporary executive function. It's a backup system, basically. And if you ever need proof of this 2-hat reality, all you have to do is follow the money. It's actually brilliant. The vice president doesn't technically get paid for being vice president. No, they draw their salary as the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. But the moment they have to step in and act as president, they stop getting the chairman's salary and instead get the full salary and allowances of the president. The paycheck literally changes with the job. And now we've arrived at that critical twist we talked about at the beginning.
This is that key difference between the Indian vice presidency and its American inspiration. And honestly, this distinction is the final piece of our entire puzzle.
Just look at this contrast. It is night and day. In the United States, if the president leaves office for any reason, the vice president becomes the new president. They serve out the rest of the term. But in India, that's not what happens at all. The VP only acts as president. They are a constitutional placeholder, a temporary caretaker, keeping the seat warm for a maximum of 6 months until a brand new presidential election can be held. And that right there, that changes everything. It reveals the ultimate purpose of the office. It was never, ever designed for succession. It was designed for continuity. The goal isn't to automatically create a new leader from the number 2 spot. The goal is simply to ensure that the chain of command is never broken, to prevent a power vacuum at the very top. So let's bring this all the way back around to that provocative question we started with. After looking at all this, is the office of the vice president really superfluous? Is it unnecessary? Well, when you look at all the evidence, the answer seems pretty clear. While the vice president might not wield a lot of executive power day to day, the office serves as an absolutely vital constitutional safeguard. It's the ultimate safety net for the highest office in the entire country. Perhaps the best way to think about it is like this. The vice president is the ultimate political understudy in a grand play. They aren't the star of the show most nights, but their most important job is to be in the wings, prepared, knowing all the lines, ready to step onto the stage at a moment's notice to make sure the show goes on without a hitch. And that leaves us with a final, much bigger question to think about. In a dynamic nation, in a world that's constantly changing, what is the modern value of a role that's designed not for daily action, but for stability and emergency readiness? What is the role of a political understudy today? Thanks for joining us for this explainer. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel Deep Dive Daily.